Good evening, everyone. Mike Palmer from Know Your Rights Group and Success Coaching International with another major live video update tonight. Now, I will warn everyone, it's probably going to be a little bit longer tonight. We've got a ton of information to get through. It has been a really big week. So let's get straight into it. The big news, of course, of the past few days has been the absolute madness that has been occurring in Parliament this week. Now, we started off the week, of course, with the very positive news that the misinformation and disinformation bill had been completely abandoned, and that is, of course, a huge win for all Australians. If anyone missed that, I'll just super quickly go through one of the articles on it. It says Labor abandons legislation to crack down on information online. Federal Communications Minister Michelle Rowland has announced the government has formally abandoned its controversial misinformation bill. Proposed legislation was rejected by the Coalition, Greens and several crossbenchers, meaning that it would not be possible to pass through the Senate. Rowland confirmed today the proposal would be scrapped as there is no pathway to legislate the bill. And it goes on and says a few other things, but that's the essence of it, and that, of course, is really positive news. However, as we warned everybody, the government is still pushing ahead with this age verification bill, the social media bill, and this, of course, is just as concerning as the misinformation bill because it's really been just rushed through purely to try and force children into some form of digital ID as early as possible. Now, we did touch on this email on Tuesday night's radio show. I know not everyone that watches these gets to listen to the show, so very quickly I'm going to read through because this is so important for right now today. So it says, we need your help. Right now, Parliament is reviewing a bill that poses a significant threat to your privacy and freedom. The Online Safety Amendment Social Media Minimum Age Bill 2024. While it's being sold as a measure to protect kids, the reality is far more concerning. This bill could pave the way for intrusive age verification systems, potentially forcing Australians to hand over personal information such as IDs or even biometric data like facial scans. This sensitive information could easily fall into the wrong hands, whether hackers, corporations, or even government authorities, leaving Australians exposed to privacy violations and surveillance. The good news? Multiple MPs are reportedly concerned about the bill. They're worried about the risks to privacy and believe the legislation won't adequately protect Australians. But we need to make sure those concerns turn into action. We need them to stand up and oppose this dangerous bill. So then this next heading is, what can you do? Email your local MP today and demand that they vote against the age verification bill. Let them know that Australians value their privacy and don't support measures that undermine freedom or create a backdoor to digital ID systems. We've included some key points you can use in your email. The bill risks exposing Australians' personal data, such as IDs and biometric information, to breaches and misuse. Age verification systems could anonymise users and create a chilling effect on free speech. Unelected bureaucrats like the E-Safety Commissioner would gain sweeping powers with minimal oversight. The legislation fails to protect Australians effectively while creating significant risks to privacy. So it says that they're in the Parliament fighting back, and they're urging people to send those emails. So please do be sure to email your local members of Parliament and let them know that you absolutely want them to oppose that bill. And again, as we covered on Tuesday night's radio show, the ACMA is actually contacting children now and asking them to trial out facial recognition for this age identification. So this is really serious stuff. So we need people to get onto that literally right now. And unfortunately, this is really just scratching the surface of the raft of legislation that Parliament is trying to rush through before the Christmas break with little to no time for any actual reasoned debate. Now, here's an article which explains a little more about about what they're trying to do right now. As Parliament wraps up, Albanese is pledging to leave nothing on the field, but he's leaving a few promises behind ahead of the election. Gee, great surprises there. I'll leave nothing on the field, the Prime Minister told his Labor colleagues on Tuesday in what may or may not have been his final caucus rev-up before the election. So then there's a little subheading, a flurry of activity, but how much will cut through? By the end of the week, it's set to pass aged care reforms, a social media age limit, that's the one to watch out for, curbs on political donations, a boost to healthcare workers' wages, increased school funding, 2 housing bills, changes to HECS indexation, and a suite of tough immigration rules. Pending further talks with the Greens, the list could potentially expand to include the government's future Made in Australia legislation and even plans to split the Reserve Bank Board in 2. And they're trying to do all of that this week. Others, most notably the world-first social media ban, have involved a quick and dirty deal with details left to be sorted out later. The rush to impose this widely popular age limit without a longer inquiry has provided the most obvious signal the Prime Minister has no intention of bringing Parliament back in February. At the very least, he wants the option of a March election up his sleeve. And it goes on to say the next few months are critical. Keeping up with the parliamentary agenda this week would have caused whiplash to even casual observers. How much of all of this will have cut through to voters at this busy time of year is unclear. Everybody's worried about Black Friday sales and focusing on Christmas parties, and no one's concentrating on all this important legislation, which is, of course, exactly why they're trying to rush it through. And at the end, the article finishes off and says, instead, Albanese is talking about leaving nothing on the field, even if in reality he's leaving a few promises behind in the interests of improving Labor's chances. So this is really, really concerning that they are trying to rush so much through in such a short time. And there's another article that I want to go through quickly that reiterates this and talks about some other legislation, like really detailed stuff that most people out there aren't even aware of. So this one's entitled Joint Media Statement. Government is trying to rush hundreds of IR amendments through Parliament with no consultation. The government looks set to dump more than 100 amendments into Parliament this week as they seek to avoid proper public scrutiny by rushing their radical workplace relations changes through the House of Representatives in a matter of days. We, Australia's major employer groups, are concerned that with only one sitting week of the House of Representatives before Christmas, there will not be adequate time for debate and proper examination of laws which will impact the entire economy. If the government proceeds with their plan to introduce these vast amendments, we call for an extension of the Senate committee report into the Fair Work Amendment Closing Loopholes Bill so that these hidden amendments can be adequately investigated and publicly scrutinised. This is what they don't want. They don't want the public even knowing about this or thinking about it, let alone actually reading it and scrutinising it. The current policy will hit Australian businesses and workers with more costs and complexity right in the middle of a cost of living crisis. To deal with criticism of the bill, the government has been making amendments, hiding them from the public, and we only expect them to be finally released on Tuesday afternoon, giving MPs no time to scrutinise the detail before being asked to accept it. These changes will affect every business and every worker, and rushing amendments without proper consultation will do nothing more than tinker at the edges of the 800 pages of legislation. All the major problems with the bill still remain, and the changes reported in recent weeks do nothing to allay our significant fears. In fact, the bill remains confusing, complex, and costly. Unfortunately, we, Australia's leading employer groups, believe the government is unwilling to listen to any views which they do not agree with. No, surely not. That doesn't sound like the government that loves and cares about us and truly wants the best for us, does it? And then it goes on to highlight... No sneeze. A few points. It says the bill will impact up to 2.7 million casual employees with less flexible jobs and the loss of 25% loading income. Push prices up for food delivery services to consumers. Expand the circumstances in which unions can enter workplaces without prior notice. Impose complexity, confusion and red tape onto small businesses who are already under enormous operating pressures. Erode the right for self-employed Australians, from barbers to builders, to be their own boss. Mean two workers with vastly different levels of experience will be forced to be paid the same. Increase costs and reduce availability of road transport services. Embroil service contractors in all industries in costly litigation regarding same job, same pay. Increase the cost of building a home in the middle of a housing crisis. We also reiterate our support for splitting the 4 non-controversial bills which have widespread support from the crossbench and coalition in both houses of Parliament. We urge the government to genuinely listen to the concerns of businesses and workers, to identify the issues it is really seeking to resolve, and engage openly and transparently to find solutions. So again, if you are in any business whatsoever, please look this article up, read it and understand what it's all about, understand what the Parliament is trying to rush through without any public debate, without any public scrutiny, and make sure you make your will known clearly to them by writing to them and saying, whoa, there's no rush here, let's adjourn this till the next sitting year. Now, it does seem like this huge rush to pass all of this legislation is beginning to take its toll on certain senators. Now, we spoke on Tuesday night's radio show about Senator Pauline Hanson's federal court case against Greens Senator Faruqi, who took Hanson to court under Section 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act after Hanson called her out for accepting all of the benefits and, of course, taking up the parliamentary position, but then making disparaging comments about the Queen, who at that time had just passed away, but who she'd actually just sworn an oath of allegiance to. So this was a crazy case, and we pulled it all apart on Tuesday night's radio show. If you missed that show, the podcast has been uploaded now, so do be sure to listen to it. But how's this? Just yesterday, Senator Hanson was thrust back into the limelight in Parliament again as all hell broke loose during parliamentary debates that ended up with Senator Lydia Thorpe being suspended from Parliament. Now, this is just crazy to think about what is going on, especially at this time of year with all of these bills being rushed through. Line in the sand, Senator Lydia Thorpe suspended from Parliament. After tearing up a motion and throwing the papers at Pauline Hanson, Thorpe will be absent for the rest of the week. Labor and the Coalition have joined together to suspend Independent Senator Lydia Thorpe from the Senate for the remainder of the sitting week after she ripped up a motion by Pauline Hanson on the chamber floor and gave senators the middle finger. Speaking to the motion, leaders of government business Penny Wong said too often debate in this place is turning to aggression, to hateful and personal attacks, and there have been multiple instances of Senator Thorpe making inappropriate and sometimes abusive comments towards other senators. All Australians have a right to feel safe at work. This behaviour would not be tolerated in any workplace, and we will not tolerate it in our workplace, she said. This fortnight alone, the senator has been censured, has sworn in the chamber, repeatedly made offensive gestures when leaving the chamber, and made comments resulting in First Nations senators from across the chamber feeling culturally unsafe. Not sure what that is. And all of that was prior to today's incident, which culminated in Senator Thorpe tearing up papers and throwing them at another senator on the Senate floor. I mean, this is like kindergarten antics. I mean, this is just crazy, okay? Now, as always, I try and bring some perspective to these situations. So I'd just like everybody to please keep the following in mind, okay? Over in the US, we got Donald Trump, okay, who hasn't even taken office yet, but is already causing all kinds of waves, within the system, upsetting the system. He's teaming up with the likes of Elon Musk, to reduce this extraordinary amount of government waste. He's teaming up with people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to take charge of health, in the US. And there's also talk of him potentially bringing in Alex Jones to be his media advisor. So he's out there making real waves and really shaking up the system. Yet here in Australia, we have 3 female senators engaged in what, all honesty, is best described as a bitch fight in the middle of Parliament, and 2 of the 3 are being dragged through the courts or being suspended from Parliament. I mean, these are the people leading our country, and we wonder why we've got problems. I mean, this is just nuts. Now, sadly, okay, it gets worse because that's not the end of our government problems. It turns out now that Aussies have been illegally charged billions of dollars in merchant fees by the federal government. But here's the kicker. Despite them admitting this issue, they're refusing to provide any refunds. And yet people are out there still believing that the government really cares about them. Okay, again, please make sure you're aware of this important article. Australians are legally charged billions in merchant fees by the federal government. The federal government is moving to put a stop to illegal merchant fees after revelations Australians have been charged billions of dollars in surcharges for government transactions. Services including passport renewals, visa applications and tax bills attracted the charge when payments were made with a debit card. So they're not even talking about credit card charges, just a debit card. Customers have paid the fees since the John Howard government era, 2GB Drive radio host Chris O'Keefe first reported today. The issue was uncovered after a similar discovery was made in New South Wales in October, where $144 million was collected illegally by the state government over 8 years. A multi-agency task force was set up to examine the issue at a federal level. 9 News understands there are no plans to refund people who were charged the small merchant fees due to the challenges of auditing across government services over many years. Isn't it interesting? The ATO doesn't seem to have any issue auditing hundreds of thousands of people every year, but when it comes to them being audited for the fees that they illegally charged, oh no, we don't want to do that. Double standards, anybody? Finance Minister Katie Gallagher said laws will be introduced to make the fees legal retrospectively on Monday, but debit card fees will not be charged from January 1st in 2025. These bills will not impose any new surcharges, but will fix the historical issue to ensure existing surcharges are authorised by legislation, the statement said. I mean, are you understanding this? I mean, this is just brilliant, okay? The government, who, let's not forget, exists to serve the people who elect them, find out they've been charging fees illegally for years, but rather than refund those fees, they instead choose to introduce retrospective legislation to make those fees legal all along. And then people go and vote these criminals back in every 4 years. I mean, what the hell is wrong with people? And then the government turns around and wonders why there's been a rise in, sovereign citizen movements or people challenging the governments and their policies. I mean, really, you genuinely, honestly don't understand why this is happening, and yet you're running our country? I mean, this is just nuts. It is absolutely nuts. But it continues, and it is going to keep continuing for as long as you allow it to keep continuing. If you don't take a stand and stop it, they will just keep getting away with it. So please, if it is to be, it's up to me. And when I say that, I'm talking about every single person watching this video. Now, thankfully, I can finish on some good news this week, and actually even a couple of positive stories. Now, the first is something that I've spoken about a number of times, especially on these video updates, and that is the ultimate end of the ticketless parking fine system, which has now become official in New South Wales. So here is the article from New South Wales. And it says, New South Wales ends ticketless parking fines. New South Wales government has ended the state's ticketless parking fine system, under which notices of infringement could sometimes be received weeks after the incident. Soon after the introduction of the ticketless system, the NRMA and other stakeholders — who's a stakeholder in a parking fine exactly? It's an interesting term, isn't it? Raised issues with the scheme, identifying that it removed transparency and made it more difficult for motorists to contest their fine. In 2023-24, local councils issued 822,310 ticketless parking fines, a 49% increase over the 551,441 issued in 22-23. The Fines Amendment Parking Fines Bill 2024 restores transparency to the parking fine system by requiring councils to attach an on-the-spot notification to the vehicle, requiring councils to take photos of offences and make them available for Revenue New South Wales to provide to drivers, providing limited exceptions where an on-the-spot notification is not required, for example where it may be unsafe or hazardous for a ranger to do so, invalidating repeat ticketless parking fines where drivers can be fined multiple times for the same offence before they've even become aware of the first offence. Something I've spoken about many times, and the Aussie speeding fines guys talk about with regards to speed camera fines, because sometimes you can commit 2 or 3 speed camera offences without ever having received the first fine. You've been given no opportunity to alter your behaviour. Very important point. Introducing data reporting rules to evaluate if further reforms are necessary. Bringing back on-the-spot notification for parking fines is a common sense reform and restores fairness and integrity to the parking fine system. Except for the fact that local councils have no authority to legally issue parking fines, but put that aside. Ticketless parking leaves motorists in the dark and robs them of the chance to contest their fine if they believe they have a legitimate case. The NRMA has been against this approach from day one. So, look, at least a little bit of positive news there. And, you know, it's good to see, I guess, that a little bit of common sense might finally be exercised by the councils. It's certainly long overdue. And some more good news. It seems like someone in South Australia has either been watching these video updates and or reading the Aussie Speeding Fines book and actually cottoned onto the idea of actually rewarding drivers for doing what they want them to do rather than just constantly punishing drivers all the time. So if you or anyone you know is in South Australia, you might want to look up this article, which is very positive. It says learner drivers in South Australia offered bonus hours. South Australia has added a new rule for learner drivers, allowing them to add 3 hours to their logbooks for every 1 hour lesson with a professional instructor. New drivers in South Australia can now get bonus logbook hours thanks to an initiative introduced this week. The South Australian government has announced learner drivers can earn up to 10 bonus hours towards their 75 logbooked hours, the minimum required to obtain a probationary licence if lessons are taken with an instructor. The new rules allow learners to log 3 hours for every hour spent with a registered motor driving instructor, with a maximum of 5 hours of lessons accounting for 15 hours in their logbook. Officials say the change will not only incentivise learners to get professional assistance, but will also help support the industry and its members. So, lo and behold, some more common sense being exercised. Now, again, anyone who's attended our live events before will know that we raise this concept all the time. Almost everybody agrees that the completion of a defensive driver or an advanced driver training course would make them a better driver. Most people also agree that, with all due respect, you know, mum and dad drivers probably aren't always the best role models for young drivers. So incentivizing young drivers to learn from professional instructors makes obvious sense. So good to see some more common sense prevailing. Long may it continue. Now, of course, this same concept is detailed in Chapter 1 of that Aussie Speeding Fines book, along with a whole host of other strategies that will genuinely and honestly not only make our roads safer, but actually make them more enjoyable to drive on as well. So if you want to learn more about those strategies to help young drivers, make them safer, make our roads safer, and things that will genuinely help to reduce that road toll, please make sure you grab a copy. As always, there's a link in the description and in the comments section. And of course, that book also has that tried and tested 3-step process for challenging all unjust and unlawful fines, and of course, saving your hard-earned money, and of course, your demerit points. Now, speaking of beating fines, I've got a great story to share with you where a police officer recently challenged a speeding fine for 26 kilometres over the limit and won primarily because of his inside knowledge of the system, which of course is the exact same information that these Aussie speeding fines guys share in their book. So here is this article, and definitely worth a read because he alludes to these testing procedures, which are so important. Former detective takes on police over improper speeding ticket, wins legal battle. When we think of the police, we often imagine them as enforcers of law and order, the ones who ensure the rules are followed to keep us safe on the roads. However, what happens when the enforcers themselves make a mistake? It turns out even a simple error can have costly consequences, as one former detective found out after a run-in with his old colleagues over a speeding ticket. Jeffrey Little, a former high-profile detective residing on the Central Coast, was pulled over in July for allegedly driving 26 kilometres per hour over the 90 km/h speed limit on a stretch of highway. However, Mr. Little was adamant that he hadn't been speeding, and his conviction led him to challenge the penalty in court. The legal battle that ensued racked up $4,477 in costs, a sum that the New South Wales Police were ordered to reimburse after the charge against Mr. Little was withdrawn. The decision was handed down in Wyong local court by Magistrate Alan Railton, who criticised the police for a series of errors that led to the improper speeding penalty, including failing to test and log the speeding device. The officer in charge gave evidence the relevant tests were carried out, but were not noted in the log, he said. I'm of the opinion that the failure to record the log and failure to comply with New South Wales standard operating procedures amounts to an improper manner. Any deviation from the standard operating manner is improper, he added. He also questioned the public's trust in the accuracy of these devices if the procedure is not properly followed. He went on to, the article goes on a little bit more, and it says, his experience, this is referring to the police officer, his experience and background in law enforcement gave him unique insights into the procedural errors that could occur and the determination to seek justice. This brings to light a broader issue of wrongful fines and the confusion that can arise from traffic violations. Similarly, a woman recently found herself facing a hefty fine for speeding in a car that she didn't even drive, raising concerns about how such errors can occur and affect everyday Australians. So again, please, if you haven't already done so, grab this book, and what you want to do is you want to refer to some of the information in the latter chapters. Now, this comes out of the actual manufacturer's training manuals. Okay, so these are the guidelines that the police are supposed to operate under, but as we just saw in that example, don't always do. Refers to things like sweep error, cosine error, slip error. The possibilities for interference are too numerous to mention. Okay, this is the manufacturers warning people about the possibilities for interference with these so-called, scientifically, accurate devices. Okay, these devices have so many problems, and once you read that book, you will understand more about the traffic laws than even most, traffic police themselves understand, because they haven't gone to the trouble to read the ins and outs of things like the testing procedures and the actual training manuals. So again, you'll find a link in the description because these are the exact technical issues: lack of compliance, lack of testing in accordance with Australian standards, all those things that are included in that book. Now, speaking of beating fines, the final bit of good news that I want to share with everybody tonight is another subject that I've spoken about many times over the past few years, and that is, of course, the withdrawal of all COVID-based fines. Now, as I'm sure any long-term viewers of these videos would remember, I stood up here twice a week back then, every week for many years over COVID, and I explained clearly that no one needed to worry about any COVID fines because they simply wouldn't stand up if they were properly challenged. Now, earlier this year, we reported on the Supreme Court case that ruled that a whole range of COVID fines were in fact deemed unlawful by the courts, and they were all withdrawn. And now the New South Wales government has gone one step further and not only withdrawing all remaining COVID fines, but is actually refunding any that have been paid. So if you or anyone you know is in New South Wales, you definitely want to read this article. So it says, New South Wales to withdraw all COVID-19 fines, refund millions to people who already paid. New South Wales government withdraw the more than 20,000 COVID-19 fines that remain outstanding and refund millions of dollars to residents who've already paid one. The move comes 2 years after 36,000 of the 62,000 pandemic-era fines were scratched following a Supreme Court ruling that they were invalid because they were too vague. The state government had not been drawn on calls to withdraw the remaining penalty notices, but today announced that they would, in fact, be scrapped. Revenue New South Wales will refund a combined $5.5 million to residents who had already partially or fully paid one of those fines. So once again, everything we said would happen year after year after year has now finally come to pass. So on that point again, just imagine what else it is that we've been out there telling people for the last 10 years that is, of course, in fact, 100% true and correct. Please make sure you spend some time on our website looking through all of the free information that we have available there to see these concepts and make sure you understand them for yourselves. Now, of course, I wouldn't be expecting Dictator Dan and his, merry band of replacement Muppets to do anything similar in Victoria, considering how much in debt the state is. But hopefully, most people watching this challenge those fines anyway, and it's not something that they have to worry about. All right, so finally, as I always do at the end of these videos, I'm going to finish off with the latest testimonial from one of our members and also cover some more great memes to get people thinking. So this is an email that was sent from Tyrone, who says, "Hi Mike, just wanted to say thanks for all your help with my fine. You gave me the courage to challenge what I knew was a ridiculous fine, and your approach to take it to court and ask for a sentencing indication and request that it be dismissed with no conviction and no fine worked a treat. Being my first time in court at just 19, it was a little nerve-wracking, but I had all my notes prepared and the magistrate listened to my explanation. As you said, the police definitely target P-platers and try and scare them, but armed with your information, I now have the knowledge and confidence to challenge any unjust fine I get in the future. I will definitely encourage others to challenge their fines too. Thanks again, Tyrone." So again, this is the information that's once again covered in that Aussie speeding fines book, and of course also in the Know Your Rights book. We've got a fines chapter in there, and that talks about things like the sentencing indications and Section 76 of the Sentencing Act, Section 10 of the Sentencing Act. So no conviction, no fine. You can absolutely use those things to your advantage. All right, so a couple of memes to finish off. Oh, now I heard something about this in the news today that, and I'm not sure if it's around Australia or just here in Victoria, where they're trying to name these different cities now with Aboriginal names. But as it says there, how can a city be renamed with an Aboriginal place name when it didn't exist until the colonists built it? It doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it? But this is this wonderful new woke world in which we live. Yes. Given what I've just said about all COVID fines being withdrawn, this follows right on. So English lesson: knife, the K is silent. Tsunami, the T is silent. Psychology, the P is silent. Vax injuries, the media is silent. And thankfully, although the media is silent on that, we have a ton of information on our website. So please go to the COVID and vaccinations tab on our site, and you'll find a whole bunch of articles, and the truth about all of that is finally starting to come out now. And I mean, this follows on, just perfectly from that same concept and makes a lot of sense. When multiple people get food poisoning at the same time, public health quickly traces the source of the outbreak and closes the plant. When multiple young people die of sudden cardiac death or suffer severe neurologic conditions, public health scratches its head. I wonder why that is. Very convenient. And this one, again, unfortunately follows along the same lines. And hopefully now that all these COVID fines are being withdrawn, people will actually start to question some of this stuff. Okay, the sad thing is we just lived through the biggest scam in the history of the world, definitely in our lifetimes, and most people haven't learned a damn thing. Most would do it all over again tomorrow if their TV told them to. And sadly, I think that is probably the case. I think there's a lot more people awake, but there are still a hell of a lot of people still asleep who still believe, despite the insanity of what's going on in Parliament right now, that the government still loves them and the government genuinely cares about them and the government does a splendid job to look after them, and they still haven't woken up. But we keep standing here week after week. We keep pushing the message out there. We keep asking you guys to keep sharing these videos around as far and as wide as you can. And we keep living in hope that people will eventually wake up, stand up, and take action. So the final thing that I want to leave you with is this one, and this is very interesting. And they are keeping the pressure on Dan Andrews, and this is fantastic. And I love to see these posts, and I'm more than happy to share them around whenever I receive them. Things Dan and Kath might have done in the 6.5 minutes before they called 000. Boiled 2 eggs, taken a shower, counted to 1,000, walked 3 times across the MCG, orchestrated a cover-up. Now, I wonder which is the most likely that they did in that 6.5 minutes between when they hit the cyclist and when they rang 000. I'll leave that for you guys to contemplate for yourselves. So on that note, I am going to finish up. As always, I do urge you to make use of all of the resources that are available to you. Now, on that point, very quickly, I have reluctantly, and I'll explain why reluctantly in a minute, agreed to work with the other groups that we work with at Aussie Speeding Fines and Bank Secrets Revealed, and we have all agreed to do a 25% off Black Friday sale. Now, the reason I say reluctantly is because we all put a hell of a lot of time, effort and energy into creating the various products that we do. They are already exceptionally well priced, so I really don't think that they should be discounted further, but unfortunately it seems as though some people expect us to run some kind of a sale just because everybody else is, which is a little frustrating. But look, on the other hand, I do acknowledge that there are a lot of people out there that are doing it tough. There are people out there that are struggling financially at the moment. And we do, of course, want to ensure that our truly life-changing information is available for those who need it the most. So please, if you do need it, and again, we would ask you only if you do need it, you can take advantage of a full 25% discount on any of our physical products, any of the Aussie Speeding Fines physical products, and any of the Bank Secrets Revealed physical products. Just go to the respective websites. You'll find the links in the description, and just enter the code word BLACK. So we have to just type in BLACK into that coupon code box that comes up on the shopping cart page to get that discount. Again, we would ask you only use that discount if you really need to, and of course, please do understand it is only available, like most of the Black Friday sales, until midnight on Sunday night. So if you do need to take advantage of that discount, please make sure you do it sooner rather than later. Again, there is plenty of free information on our website. There's plenty of free information on the other websites we recommend. All of these videos, of course, completely free to watch. You find them in our BitChute channel, our YouTube channel, and the videos tab on our Facebook page. If you do want to go above and beyond that, then we do, of course, have our Know Your Rights book, the essential step-by-step manual for understanding and exercising your rights, the Aussie Speeding Fines book for challenging all manner of unjust and unlawful fines, and, of course, the Bank Secrets Revealed book for challenging all those unsecured loans, that's your credit cards, personal loans, things like that. So again, you can get these individually. You can get them as part of the combo pack. We do have the tote bag that we include as a little bonus. Don't forget our brand new products, that affidavit and submission CD. I mentioned this last week. We sold completely out of the first run of CDs that we did. So the second run has been completed. We've got brand new stock in time for the Black Friday sale. So if you want to know exactly how to write and draft affidavits, outlines of submissions, the difference between those and the stat deck, there's a 1 hour video. There's 70, I think about 100 pages all up of actual sample affidavit and submissions. Everything is on that disc. So very, very powerful disc. We have now combined that disc with the it doesn't want to open. So it's a triple pack with that and the Constitution Commission reports and the FOI CD. So these are all the evidence from the government themselves that what they are doing is unlawful. And so what you do is you print these documents off, you attach them as an exhibit to this affidavit, and you put that in your court case, and that is as close to a guarantee of success as you are going to get. So we have obviously called that our court success pack, because when you combine those 3 discs together, it is going to give you everything you need to create a rock solid paper trail. So again, you find a link in the description or in the comments there, or otherwise if you're watching this on YouTube, just go onto our shop page and search around there and you will find it on there. And of course, speaking of new discs, don't forget we do have our brand new podcast CD. This is the latest one from shows 381 to 400. So if you are collecting our podcast CDs, do grab that so you can add that to your collection. And then finally, of course, don't forget our home study course. If you have missed our live events this year, you can grab the home study course. It's a complete recording of one of our 2.5-day live events. There's 17 DVDs. There's a CD with all the documents we use ourselves. There's 3 custom-made workbooks with sections next so you can write notes next to every single slide from every single presentation. It is a fantastic resource that you'll come back to again and again and again over the years. You'll find a link as well, and all of this is part of that Black Friday sale if that's of interest to you. Don't forget our caps. The weather is starting to warm up now, so grab your caps, protect your heads. People see the logo, they come up and have a chat. Great way to meet like-minded people, so take advantage of those as well. So again, Black Friday sale must finish on a Sunday night. No live radio show next Tuesday, but we will replay this week's show in case anybody missed it. And of course, again, back next Thursday for our next live video update. Until then, have a fantastic weekend, everybody, and take care.